Welcome back to another video. My name's Emil and this is the Supergiri YouTube channel, and this is going to be another video about learning languages, specifically getting to an intermediate level and a specific change that happens before you get to that level. If you're a complete beginner or you've just getting started, you might find my other video that I made recently more helpful, which is my 20 tips for how to learn a language and achieve immersion. So I'll put a link to that on the screen. Hopefully it's on the screen somewhere, so click on that, might be more helpful. So yeah, if you're studying a language and you're in the early stages and you haven't got to an intermediate level yet, so this is B1, but maybe you're in an A2 stage, what you're probably finding is that your brain doesn't want to remember this foreign stuff that you're trying to remember, okay? And this is the thing about learning a language, is that your brain doesn't really want to remember it unless it sees it as useful, right? And like, this is kind of how our brains work, just in general with everything we see in life, because there's so much information around us, right? And if our brains just received all of that and remembered it, it would be very inefficient. We'd have lots of useless information in our heads. So our brain just kind of filters this out, and it goes, you know, is this something useful that I can use? Well, then I should probably remember it. Or is it connected to an emotional experience? You know, is this going to come up again? And yeah, your brain will just delete things that it doesn't think are useful. And when you start learning another language, that definitely falls into the category of not useful. So it's a bit like, for example, if I asked you to go to the supermarket and buy me something called gravlax, right? I don't actually know what that is, but it's some kind of food. And just for example, let's say it comes in a can, so it's not particularly memorable, right? And I say, can you go to the supermarket and buy me some gravlax, right? You don't know what this is, you've never seen it before, you've never heard of it. And you can go to the supermarket, you'll be able to remember this word whilst you're carrying out that task, and you'll find it and buy it and give it to me. I'll be like, thanks for doing that, that's great, thank you. It's very nice of you. But after that, you're not going to remember what this word was, right? Because a week later or a month later, like, no one else asks you to buy this thing, or you don't buy it, and it's just completely useless to know that word, right? So your brain will delete it. And this is the same thing when you're learning foreign words. Your brain is just not remembering them. So the way that we need to get our brains to start recognizing that this is something useful and to start remembering this information is through three things, I would say, right? You've got immersion, which is just having this foreign language all around you in lots of ways, just constantly, you know, I don't really need to describe what immersion is, do I? Immersion. Next up, repetition. So this will be encountering the same things, you know, over and over again. Whether you have moved country or you're studying in your native country, you can still achieve these two things, immersion and repetition, because with immersion you can use lots of avenues. Like I was saying in my other video, you can find avenues to expose yourself to language. Then repetition, you're getting that through the immersion, but also you can use a spaced repetition system to just repeat these words at your brain until it sinks in, right? But the third thing is emotion. And so if you have an emotional experience in life, then your brain will recognize that as useful information because it made you feel something, right? It's a strong, powerful connection. So you're far more likely to remember things when there's an emotional connection there. And if you haven't moved country, this is going to be more difficult to achieve, because if you have moved country, you know, you're going to be out in the world having lots of experiences, lots of emotions, new experiences. But if you're studying at home in your native country, then you might not be able to find this emotional aspect so easily. What you could try is there are apps for connecting with native speakers in doing video calls with them. I've never tried this, but there's a couple that I found. There's one called Tandem, another one called Hello Talk. Never tried them, but this is something you could look into, or find a native speaker, you know, in your hometown that you might be able to practice with, or something like that. So yeah, when I was in Turkey, I met this guy called Jihan. So my friend Jihan, I met him in a co-working space. He was sitting next to me, and he was a game developer, which was really cool to have a game developer sat next to me. And when we met, he was wearing a Day 9 t-shirt. So I don't know if anyone's heard of Day 9, but he's like a vlogger, a YouTuber now, and he makes gaming videos. Sean Plott, shout out to Sean Plott, even though I've never met him. So I saw Jihan wearing this t-shirt and I was like, oh wow, like I love Day 9. Like I used to watch his videos in 2010, like every day. He was quite an inspiration to me, and probably like the first person I'd ever seen talking to a camera like this and like doing videos. So yeah, he was a big inspiration. Anyway, got chatting with Jihan, and he was telling me about his experience of living and working in San Francisco. So this is when he met Day 9, Sean Plot, and they actually worked together. And he was saying, yeah, because he's Turkish, right? And he was trying to learn English, and his brain was saying, you know, oh, what's this foreign stuff? You know, like, why is this guy trying to speak English? And after a bit of time, a few days, a few weeks, his brain was like, this is the way he described it to me, oh, this guy really is like trying to do this English thing, okay? Like, well, I guess we need a new server. And you can tell he's a programmer, right? You can tell he's a developer. So he said, you're trying to learn this foreign language and your brain at some point realizes this and goes, okay, well, we need a new server. We'll start setting that up in the background, right? But it's not ready yet. You can't use it straight away until it's ready. So you're out there like trying to talk, you know, and I think Jihan could understand quite a lot, but he couldn't really speak English very well. So he's out there trying to say things, he's kind of floundering around, you know, where we would obviously be masterful in English. But eventually one day he said that his brain said, oh, by the way, you know that server that I was setting up? Yeah, well, that's ready now. So it's good to go. You've got the English server. You can now process English words much faster. It's going to be great. And he said there was just like this difference where it felt like he had, you know, the Turkish server in his head, and then he had the English server, this brand new English server. And he said it like transformed how he was able to go about in the world talking, and it just made a massive difference. So I also had the same story told to me by my friend Julia. So Julia is actually my ex-girlfriend, and the reason I moved to Spain, so yeah, I moved to Spain for love, and then we broke up once she realized that I was just using her for free language lessons. Happy ending to the story, we're still friends. But yeah, Julia speaks 4 languages. She's much more accomplished than me in language learning. She already speaks Spanish and Catalan kind of like natively, and she moved to England, which is where I met her, and she was learning English and Italian at the same time, right? Because why not? 2 languages at the same time. Masochist, absolute masochist. And the way she described it to me, so it was similar to what Jihan said with this server metaphor, that she said she felt like she had all these drawers in her head, right? Like she got the Spanish drawer, Catalan drawer, and then these new, well, there's maybe one drawer for the foreign drawer. And she had kind of like Italian stuff in there, English stuff, and she would try to speak, and it was a bit of a muddle, she's getting mixed up. But she had a lot of exposure, a lot of immersion, a lot of repetition and emotion, right? In those languages, because she was working in English. And eventually, she said, after, you know, a lot of confusion and struggling, she went to sleep one night, and it was almost like something happened, like overnight. She woke up in the morning, and it was like her brain had said, okay, like we need to sort this out, you know, we put everything in the separate drawers. And she woke up in the morning, and she was just suddenly able to like open the English drawer, speak English, open the Italian drawer with her Italian friends and speak Italian. And everything was just more, you know, organized and fluid. So I'd had these stories told to me by friends, but I hadn't yet experienced it myself about 2 years ago. So when I was living in Turkey, I did actually witness this happen to me. So I was quite stressed out at this time, because I was able to go to Turkey for 3 months. They allow you to go there with a 3-month temporary visa. But that time was running out, right? And because I was studying a language course, that allowed me to apply for a residency permit. But I had to do all this kind of bureaucracy to get there, right? So I was going to appointments before work. I was like getting up early, getting the ferry from the European side in Istanbul over to the Asian side to go to the office where they deal with this stuff, and, you know, talk to someone in Turkish to present my application. And I went there, and they were just like, no, like you need to get all this other stuff, right? So I was going around Istanbul in my, you know, squeezing these appointments in and things to do all this bureaucracy. I had to go to the tax office to get a tax code. I remember I walked up to the desk, and the first thing I said to the guy was like, "Merhaba, İngilizce konuşabilir misiniz?" And he looked at me and goes, which means no. So I had to just chat to him in Turkish, and yeah, that was okay, in fact. And then I had to go and get health insurance and, you know, go around to these places and just do everything in Turkish. Then after that, I would go to work. So I was working in this co-working space, and everyone in my section basically were the native, they were Turkish people. Only a few people could speak English. So there was a lot of Turkish around me. And I would do my job, and you know, people would be interrupting me whilst I was working. So I was on my computer, and someone would interrupt and be like, "Oh, do you want to like go for lunch, or like what are you doing, or why are you working so much? Like, do you want to just take a break, you weirdo? Why are you working?" And there was this guy called Samit there. So Samit is a blind man, and a very inspirational guy, like so positive. I asked him once, "What's it like to be blind?" And he said it was a lot of fun. So yeah. With Samit, we would sometimes go for lunch. He'd be like, do you want to get lunch? Or we went for dinner a couple of times. And so the way this works, if you've ever gone anywhere with a blind person, is that they were asked to take your arm. So Samit would take my arm, and I would like lead him to the restaurant we were going to, or wherever. And so what this meant was that I would have to like direct him, or like give him heads up about what was going on, right? Because he had his stick to feel, and he was familiar with certain places. But as we start walking down the road, right, he doesn't know where he is. So in Turkish, I'm like saying to him, you know, "Oh, watch out, there's a tree in front of you, or we have to turn left, or we have to turn right, or there's some steps, or, you know, the road here, stop, wait," you know. So I had to like describe everything that was going on, and often I just didn't have the words to do that. So I was like struggling, and my brain was, you know, trying to find the words. So I was doing all this stuff and like having all this immersion, and I would go home at night and be like, "Whoa, that was a long day," you know. And what I found is I went to sleep and my brain just started processing it, right? I was like dreaming in Turkish, like I had these dreams that I was like with Samit, and he would be like making hot drinks or something, like he's like boiling loads of water and like trying to pour it, but he's blind. So I was like, "Samit, watch out," like, you know, like in the dream, telling him in Turkish, "Oh, this thing's there, that thing's on the left," and like giving him directions. And then just, yeah, like meeting, all these dreams about meeting people and chatting in Turkish. And I woke up, right, and I had to go back to the original place where I had this, where I presented my application. And they told me, "Don't come back for 2 weeks, like, you know, don't come back here." But my flatmate was like, "This is Turkey, like, just ignore what they said, just turn up, just go again." So I got up again in the morning, and I got the ferry over to the Asian side, and I went there, and I didn't have an appointment, right? So I was a bit nervous. I was just like, "Oh, can I talk to someone?" And what I found was like something had changed overnight, right? Like I was suddenly able to like speak more quickly, find the words, had more words, I could understand people better. And it was just like a massive transformation. So on your journey through A2 until you get to B1, this is something that will happen. And I guess it can happen at any point in your language learning journey. And in fact, with learning anything, is that if you can expose your brain, kind of just bombard it with information, you'll get to this point where your brain is like, "Okay, this is happening, I have to process this." And you'll find this when you go to sleep, probably, that your brain starts processing all this stuff, and you just wake up. It's like this change has happened so rapidly, which is really amazing. So I also found this with coding, because like my job is, I'm a front-end web developer, and I learned a lot on the job like 6-7 years ago, I guess. And at that time, I was writing a lot of code and like changing the way I was doing things, trying to find paradigms that I could use. So during this time, I'd be just like looking at code 8 hours a day, and then dreaming of writing code and like, you know, organizing it, placing it, nesting it, all this stuff. And nowadays, like I still work with code every day, and I don't dream about it ever, like no matter what. Even if I have to do some like crazy long days for deadlines, like 11 hours, 12-hour days or something, I still just like don't really dream about it that much, unless there's like, I don't know, something particular. But I do find that if I'm learning a new concept, then yeah, maybe this same thing could happen. So the same thing happened to me in Spain this week, actually. Like, it was similar to my experience in Turkey. I had to speak to a lawyer on the phone for about 20 minutes. I was really proud of myself, like it all went really well. And I had to go to an appointment in the tax office like 2 days ago, go and like present an application, like chat to them, and that went really well. And then I had to speak to FedEx on the phone for like 10-20 minutes, in all of this in Spanish. So this happened this week, and yeah, I think I dreamt a little bit in Spanish, but not much. because I'm already at this level now where I've already got this box in my head, which is the Spanish box, you know, the Spanish drawer. And I can now deal with new Spanish stuff a lot easier. So like if I learn a new word, I can remember it a lot easier than at the start, because all of the words and concepts in Spanish, they're kind of in the same family, obviously, like they follow similar patterns and rules. So when I encounter new content, my brain's already prepared. It's like, yeah, Spanish drawer, like this is how it works. So I'm just much more powerful in learning Spanish stuff now. So yeah, in conclusion, to get to this intermediate level, you need to bombard your brain with immersion, repetition, and emotional experience, if possible, emotional experiences. So yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and maybe check out my other video that I made the other day with my 20 tips for learning a language. And I basically talk about ways that you can do this, that you can find immersion and repetition and so on. So check that out. Yeah. That's what I got. I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, link on screen to the other video.